Dr. Carl Sagan, interviewed by Sally Quinn and Hughes of CBS News in Washington, D.C. on December 7th, 1973.
There's been a rash of stories about sightings of unidentified flying objects recently, and Hughes Rudd, for one, has dutifully reported most of them. Most people sort of snicker at the idea, but secretly wonder if there really is something or someone out there. Today we have a man with us who has done more than wonder about it. Dr. Carl Sagan is director of the Laboratory for Planetary Studies and professor of astronomy and space sciences at Cornell University. Science News says Dr. Sagan has probably spent more time studying and writing about the possibilities of intelligent extraterrestrial life than any other scientist in the past decade. Dr. Sagan was also responsible for having the plaque with the symbols showing humans and our place in the solar system on Pioneer 10, just in case it was intercepted by an advanced civilization on its journey to Jupiter and beyond. Dr. Sagan, do you think that there's a possibility that there is extraterrestrial, and that's a very difficult word to say, life out there?
I think there's a possibility. Nobody knows how probable that is. But the thing is that we live at the first moment in human history when we can do more than speculate. We're able now to land spacecraft on Mars, as the United States will do in the summer of 1976, to actually look for microorganisms and bigger beasties, if there are any, on the Martian surface. And we now have the capability to use large radio telescopes to see if anyone living on planets of other stars is sending us messages. So the subject has passed only in the last few years from speculation to science.
Have there been any sort of any indications of something that might be taken as a message?
There have. There was, for example, a report by Soviet scientists just a few weeks ago, which they thought they detected extraterrestrial intelligence. It appears that it was certainly intelligence, but not extraterrestrial. It looks as if it was a classified American military reconnaissance satellite that had picked up.
Well, I don't want to dwell on the subject of unidentified flying objects, but what do you think there is to all this, especially the latest rash of reported sightings of...
Well, the Pascagoula, Mississippi thing occurred in the week of the Arab-Israeli war and the resignation of Vice President Agnew. I wonder if there is a connection.
Well, how could there be? What do you mean?
I think that at times of great tensions, when the moorings are being shaken, the idea that we're being visited by somebody who's powerful and takes care of us becomes a much more tempting hypothesis, an old religious belief in a kind of modern scientific dress. There's no question that people see things in the sky that they don't understand, but there, in my view, and I've spent a fair amount of time looking at this, are not a single piece of evidence which is both reliable and obviously exotic enough to be a spacecraft from somewhere else. I think it's a natural phenomenon misapprehended by the observer.
Do you think there's a possibility that there is life that is more advanced than ours on some other planet, maybe in some other solar system?
Sure, because the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. There are planets which are billions of years older than the Earth. And we think we know enough about the origin of life that it's easy, that it happens fast. The molecules that make up life are littering the universe. And therefore there must be beings, I would think, with powers considerably in advance of our own.
You've said that you thought it was unlikely that they would be like human life, but that we in fact are an accident or are based upon sevean accidents. Would you explain that? What do you think?
Sure.
They weren't like us, what they might be.
Oh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I mean, imagine yourself on Mars looking at the Earth through a telescope and you see a shimmering blue ball with white clouds around it, and you've got to deduce what the inhabitants look like. There's no way to do that. We're the product of 4 billion years of accidental evolution. By accidental, I mean that the working process of evolution is mutation, which is a random event, and slow adaptation to the local conditions. You have different conditions or different mutations, you wind up with a different organism. So while we have no idea what organisms elsewhere would be like, what is probably a pretty safe conclusion is that they would not be like us.
Well, if there is an advanced civilization, and if there really is no proof that any of the sighted UFOs are part of those civilizations, why do you think they, or it, I don't know what to call it, would not have visited us or sent us messages or signals in some way that we wouldn't have detected?
Well, I think there may be messages passing through this room at this very moment, but if we don't listen, we're not likely to hear them. And that's the point about radio telescopes. Radio telescopes can pick up such messages if they're being beamed our way, and at this moment, both the United States and the Soviet Union are beginning at a very extremely modest level the first stages in a search for such signals. But there are many stars in the sky. The Milky Way galaxy has 250 billion stars, more or less like the sun, and it looks as if you have to look at a fair number of them before you have a fair chance of picking up anybody else.
Well, I think most of us can understand spending all this money for space exploration when human beings are going to the moon, or if human beings were going to Mars or something, but why is it important, for instance, Pioneer 10 passing around behind Jupiter and will now keep going for 11 million years or something? What do we really learn from that has anything to do with the human condition?
I think that human beings are deeply concerned with the surroundings, where we live. I think there's a strong sense of adventure. The Earth has now been entirely explored. There are no new places on the Earth. And at the same moment in time, we have the capability of exploring our surroundings in the solar system. I think the spirit of adventure, if nothing else, is a strong motivation. But I also think there are strong practical benefits, because there are sciences like biology, meteorology, and geology, which are earthbound, and so their powers are very limited. When those sciences are expanded by comparing with examples elsewhere, their earthbound powers become greatly enhanced, and I think the practical benefits on the Earth can be enormous. It's also very cheap. If I can give one money example, the cost of a decades-long exploration by unmanned spacecraft of the entire solar system out to Pluto, which was canceled for lack of funds, cost less than the 1970 fiscal year cost overrun on the anti-ballistic missile system. Mm-hmm. The accounting errors in the Department of Defense in a single weapon system exceed the cost of exploration of the whole solar system for a decade. I think we can afford it. I even think it's a better use of the money.
Well, some of the newspaper accounts, at least, I don't know how scientifically accurate they were, said that we might learn from the information Pioneer 10 sent back from Jupiter about the origins of the universe. Why do we care about the origins of the universe?
I think that as long as there have been human beings, we've cared about where we've come from, and certainly all the great religious philosophies have been strongly oriented towards questions of origins. And gee, in my talkings to people, congressmen, cab drivers, students, I find everybody's interested in that. I think it's part of being human to want to know where you came from. And
yes,
ask
but
these
we're
deep
not
questions.
going to get a theological answer from...
no, you're going to get a right answer.
Oh, dear.
You said that if you had been here 50 years ago, you probably wouldn't have studied astronomy because it was only in the nature of speculation, and if you were here 50 years from now, you wouldn't study it because everything will most likely be known by then.
I was thinking more in terms of the exploration of the solar system. But that's
you
right.
think in 50 years we will know everything?
50 years, the whole solar system will have been explored, I think. 50 years ago, we knew nothing. This is the only generation in the history of mankind that starts out not knowing and winds out knowing. It's a very exciting time to be alive in that context.
Do you think, I have one last question, we're almost out of time, but do you think that there's a possibility we could inhabit some other planet if this planet becomes uninhabitable, which seems more likely every day?
Yeah, it sure is looking uninhabitable. Yeah, but that's not a trivial re-engineering of another planet, and I don't think that solves population problems. That's a very long-term objective for mankind. I think we've got to solve our problems here.
Thank you very much for being with us. It's fascinating.
Thank you, Sally.
Right.